And welcome to Niners Radio. This is Brian, your host, and we have Dina along with us. Dina, how we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. And we have a little surprise for everybody. We have Matt and Dexter joining us now. So let's go ahead and bring them on.
Hey guys, how you doing? Dexter here.
Hey Dexter, how you doing? We got Matt with us. We have Dina. How's everybody doing?
Doing great. Good to hear everybody's voices.
Yes. The team has improved a little since the last we talked.
a little bit.
Little bit.
Hey, that's why we were excited to come back, because evidently, being on your show obviously brought them a little luck. So we were looking forward to this opportunity to come back.
Mm-hmm.
With our combined forces, we can get this team a win, right?
That's right.
There we go.
Well, now if that's going to hinder us from getting a quality top pick now, I like the effort they're putting forth, but maybe we need to still just stay in the running for that great pick.
This is the tough part of the season when it's like, do we want to see a win or do we want to see a draft pick?
Exactly. But I'm sure we'll discuss that as we go through this show.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. And, I want to go over a couple things that we didn't clarify last time, so we have a little time here to talk about it. And I'd like to get we'll go with Matt first, okay, Matt? Now,
right.
Matt obviously writes for the Grueling Truth, and obviously his stuff's out there. You'll see it on Niners Radio. You'll see it on the Niners organization websites. And Matt, what I want to ask you first is, and I've been trying to break it down this year, what Carlos Hyde has done from last year to this year. And I do see his running isn't as violent when healthy, but at the same time, he's not found his blockers as he was at the beginning of the year. What is your thoughts on that? Is that an accurate statement, or?
It's hard to gauge exactly what's happening because, the injuries can. You get a small sample size, and it's hard to know exactly what's happening. I don't remember how many games he's missed this year with an injury, and then he missed a lot last year. And that's been the big question mark with him. Can he sustain, the big week one performance last year against Minnesota? He was pretty good this year against the Rams. I believe he started off early in the year with 6 touchdowns, relatively fast. Seemed to be a good red zone runner. One of the things about him when he came out of college, it was one of the strengths was he's a patient runner. He follows his blockers. And so it's hard to say exactly what's happening because he just came back. He seems to have gotten some production, especially this week. I believe he averaged 5 yards a carry. It's nice to see him catch a ball out of the backfield, but I really don't know if there's something I can point to say what he's doing right or wrong, or if it has really anything to do with transition with the offensive line. It's a different line than it was last year. I think things are getting a little bit better, but I just don't know that we have the sample size to really say what's happening for sure. And that's just how I'm looking at it. But I know that's probably not a definitive answer, but I don't really know what to point to.
Yeah. Well, before I let Dexter answer that, from what I've seen, he realizes that last year he was such a violent runner, and there's no way he was going to last a full season with that. And I just don't think, at the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, he's waiting for his blockers to, to get him seams and, trying to make the right cutbacks. But, since he's came back, and I know it's only been a couple weeks, it just doesn't seem like he's doing the right things to set him up to succeed. I think he's averaging like 57 yards since he came back. Obviously, that's not good enough for wins to start piling up, to have a running game and an offense to be built like that. Let's ask someone that obviously knows a lot more than either me or Matt. Dexter, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, if you look at his last game, he had 13 carries for 65 yards. If you're does anyone know how many carries Ezekiel Elliott had this last game, or how many carries he's averaging a game? I guarantee you it's much more than 13.
Yeah.
So when you look at a running back, one, Carlos Hyde, needs more than 13 carries. I think 65 yards isn't that bad, and his yards per carry, wasn't that bad. But if we look back at this year and how it's gone for Hyde, for one, he's missed a considerable amount of time to injury. And as we see Cap, the more he plays, the better he gets. Carlos Hyde is no different. Who even knows if he's 100%? But nonetheless, he hadn't been back long enough to get into that groove such as Cap is getting into. That's why if this team was able to play together, and let's say Cap was the guy initially and Hyde didn't get hurt, they would be a much better running team. And he would be much more acclimated to understanding how the line was going to block, and which would enable him to follow his blockers better. And, none of us has said that the offensive line has been that exceptional this year. It's easy for Ezekiel Elliott to run behind that number one offensive line in the league that Dallas has. Well, Carlos Hyde doesn't have that. So what I see, and as far as the progression of the offense, with Cap becoming one of the top fantasy players, Carlos Hyde, the more he plays and the more he understands, regardless of how great this line is, he'll understand more how they block, and he can start using his abilities to make people miss, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of that line, and they'll be better as a group, but he'll definitely be better. So I'm not too worried about it because, again, he's got to get the carries to get the yards. And what he's gotten just in this last game, I think, shows that he is improving, and he still got to continue to feel comfortable coming back from his injury. So, this year, man, I wish they could win the rest of their games, and Hyde would have a great deal to do with that. But right now, I know the future is bright. Hyde is what we thought he was last year, and I think he's going to show that going into next year. The offense is going to continue to get better. They're going to get a little better talent, in this here draft. So Hyde is a big part of this offensive unit for the 49ers. So I'm not sweating it too much.
Now, that brings me to my next question. Is Carlos Hyde, is he the future? I mean, I have questions about that.
I don't.
Are you sure about that?
6 feet, 235 pounds. Nobody complained about him whenever he was doing what he was doing early in his career. But injuries will slow that down. Who knows? I can't answer the questions why he's had these lingering issues. I don't think he's injury prone. I think it has something to do with the overall talent of the offense and going through, the quarterback issues that they had. So, I'm not giving up on Hyde. I don't think we need to jump in the draft and go get in the back that, can come in and unseat him. I think we've got, two backs on the team that can carry this load for the 49ers. It's just so many other things that need to be squared, up with this here offensive unit, going forward.
Now, I think we all thought when we drafted him, Mike Davis was going to be that second-tier change-up pace back. And, he showed a little in preseason, but has been kind of a disappointment in the regular season. But saying that, you have the Sean Drone, you have Juwan Harris, who've kind of put a little lightning to this offense at times. I do think that needs to be addressed one way or the other. If one of those two are going to be the future, and just to use them right, bring them out of the backfield, do the short routes, because some of these linebackers, they just can't match up one-on-one. There's no way. I think it's more with Juwan Harris, but obviously Sean Drone's got a little bit better hands, I would say. What's your guys' thought on that?
Well, if I could say one thing,
go ahead.
And I know you're going to hit this point, but I don't recall what Hyde's measurables were coming out of Ohio State, but I'm looking at it, 6 feet 235.
235, yeah.
I personally think if the young man drops 10 pounds, I guarantee he'll be a better back. He's still got, enough weight at 225. I just think 6 feet 235 is pretty, heavy for the type of running style he has. I think, he'll be more valuable and just an overall better back. That's just my opinion, guys. Maybe you guys can, along with the other things you're going to say, can kind of jump in on that. But I think that will be a big difference for him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Matt, what were you going to say?
Well, your question about Carlos Hyde, is he the future? One of the stats I really like about Carlos Hyde's career is the amount of yards after contact. He averages, he was right there with Marshawn Lynch when he came out, in his rookie year. That's always been a high number for him. His average yards right after contact. The guy has the physical tools, like Dexter was saying. Maybe perhaps this is a situation where, like Roger Craig, when he was drafted as a fullback, they moved him to tailback and he shed 10 to 15 pounds and he became what we all remember with Roger Craig. Perhaps maybe that would help him. I'm not exactly sure if that's exactly what he needs to do, but I think right now the only thing that concerns most people and what is bringing the doubt is, can he sustain the good parts, or the good things that we do see out of him for a season? And we just haven't seen that yet, and so I know that that's bringing the doubt. For me, what I'd really like to see is a really solid number 2 that can spell him to, just bring a little bit more speed, kind of like Kendall Hunter did for Frank Gore. Kendall Hunter was a really, really good change of pace during the 2011 and 12 seasons. So if he had that, and I really like Sean Drone as like a third down back. I like him out of the backfield, like you were saying. His hands are really, really good. He's a good back as well. I was really hoping Mike Davis was going to turn into that, but I'm just not sure if that's going to happen. I have much more concerns with Mike Davis than I would about Carlos Hyde. But like you guys were talking about, what this offense really needs is a big receiver, because we're watching, and I'm sure we're going to get on Colin Kaepernick a little bit more. Play has improved. The offense does look a little bit better, but it's like Dexter was saying. More reps. Carlos Hyde doesn't get enough carries. Now partially because, when you're down, you when you're trying to make a comeback, you're usually not feeding the running back a lot. So that's a factor. But you got to get more carries to really be able to tell. Maybe more sample size to really know.
Right.
I just think there's a lot of unanswered questions with Carlos Hyde, but I'm confident that he can be the running back that we all think that he can be, because when he looks good, he looks really, really good. But it's just, the injury has been tough. So you just got to have one of those years where he breaks out and has a few more of those Minnesota Viking type games, or even the couple games that he had this year. So there's just so many unanswered questions, but I feel good about having Carlos Hyde on the team and building around him.
Yeah, no, most definitely. As unfortunately, I can't believe I'm doing this already, but I'm gonna bring it up. Obviously, as we look at the college, because it's just more interesting to watch college games this year. You look at certain things you might need, okay, and obviously, I would love, to bring the running back from Stanford over here with a Carlos Hyde. Someone who can return kicks, someone who can get out of the backfield, change the pace back. I would love to see something like that. And, as you look at the wide receivers that are coming out, obviously, you look at the Mike Williams, you look at the Sutton from SMU, you look for the Smith Schuster from USC, Dupree from LSU, and all these guys, they're very good players. Are they elite players though? I'm not too sure if I can say that. So as we go into the off season, you hope that some of these wide receivers that will hit the free agent market don't get franchised, but you can't guarantee something like that. It's very interesting to see, obviously who our general manager is, if it will be Trent Baalke, if it won't, who will that be? I think we talked about this last time, I do think even if we do keep Trent, there has to be that middle guy between Trent and Jed York. It has to happen, guys. It has to. And I think there's a lot of concern of players that will only come over here and we have to overpay for them because they don't want to deal with the nonsense. They've seen what happened with Frank Gore. They've seen what happened with, obviously all these guys retiring. If that was for them, if it was against them, who knows? But, these guys were not taken care of the way that, Eddie D and Carmen Policy were taking care of guys. It's just not a prime place to come to. So how do you fix that? You have the issues going on in Santa Clara. You have a GM running a team and not being shown visibly to the public, where, every 49er game we've been turning on lately at home, you can see more of the seats than the fans. That's a problem. That is a problem. So, I think, and I don't think, we're all smart here. We have an idea. I think it's going to be a full breakdown and rebuild again. And obviously more than it was this year. This year I think they tried to bring in people to still compete, to keep those sales up for the season ticket holders. And this is where we're at. One win, and probably, like it or not, we only have the Bears game, who's probably, that is a very winnable game, but what team are we going to see this Sunday? I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys, but maybe each one of you guys can answer the question. What do you do?
That's a hard one. You're talking about a lot of problems at a lot of levels. It's hard to just, really successful organizations, you have a lot of things come together at the same time. If you're going to be successful for a long period of time, especially in the way the league is set up right now to prevent dynasties, Eddie D and Carmen policy, the salary cap was created to stop them. If we remember that. And it's difficult to sustain long-term success in this league. The only way you can do it, you have to have a successful GM, head coach, and quarterback all come into existence with either at the very same time or within a year or two of each other. It's hard to do. That's why there's a lot of teams that are struggling. So it's, I'd love to break all of these things down, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, a lot of things that need to be redone. I don't know what the answer is at the top, but yeah, no doubt the success of the GM has to change in order for this team to start becoming successful and turning things around.
Well, let me interrupt you, Matt. Let me interrupt Matt for just a second. And Matt, I know you've talked to people off record. I do also. All right, I'm going to try to say something here. You can tell that people that even are on the 49ers right now are not happy, and they don't want to deal with the people that are upstairs right now. Yeah. And that shouldn't happen. That should not happen. And for people that are free agents that want to come here, they're going to be looking for a check, and that's what it's going to come down to. How much are you willing to pay me to deal with the nonsense that's going with upper management? And let's say fix, starting with the general manager, starting with maybe some middle guy, what happens? What happens?
It's one of those things where the culture obviously has to change at the top. It's no secret that there are issues at the top. There are constant leaks coming down into the press. I don't know what the answer is up top, and unfortunately, you can't just oust. As much as a lot of fans would love to, Jed York to either step down or be removed. No, that just doesn't happen. And and then it's kind of up to him what happens to Trent Baalke, largely, I think. And so if that all stays, the only way that you can have success, you have to draft well, and you're going to have to overpay for some free agents, but you're going to have a successful coach and a proven system to start turning this around. There has to be success. Success on the field can cover up a lot of issues. Let's not forget, Eddie DeBartolo didn't start out very successful either. And Bill Walsh and the culture had to change on the field for Eddie DeBartolo to be accepted early on, and then he became what we all know and remember. But he was also looking to fire Bill Walsh like every week. Winning covers up a lot of things. So right now they're just going to have to draft well and overpay for free agents and get some good play on the field for things to even start to turn around.
Well, to hit on something that Matt said earlier, yes, the NFL, from the salary cap or whatever, a lot of things were put in place to eliminate dynasties. But what Jed needs to do, I know he's got Eddie and his, there that he can fall back on and talk to, but there's one team out there through all of this has seemed to be the one and only team that has stayed consistent. And they do it with players that aren't top draft picks, players that they bring in and seem to fit into what their system, wants them to do. And it works. Maybe Jed needs to go and have a conversation with Kraft, because I'm going to tell you what, yes, they've got Brady, but you know what? Who didn't have a chance to get Brady? Okay, I know everybody can't have that, Dak, in the fourth round or whatever round he was drafted in, or the Brady, whatever round he was drafted in. But all I do know is that they're the only team that has consistently done it with their system and with players that are not just top draft picks, coming out. Would it be that hard, for, Jed, or I think people who are leadership positions should see who's leading well, or quarterbacks in the league who see somebody who's doing it well, and go confer with them, have a conversation. Heck, you want to be great, hang around great people, talk to great people, find out what they're doing, because they're doing something that is right. They can take a player like LeGarrette Blount, who had his issue with, the drug issue with Pittsburgh. Heck, I recruited him at Florida State, before he went to Oregon. And everybody knows the Oregon situation that he had, the fight. But they could take a player like him and conform him to their way of doing things. So forget the salary cap, forget all of that. This is about talent evaluation. This is about taking players and plugging them into your system. And, yes, you guys made a good point. You do have to have your front office, straight. But nobody ever talks about the general manager for New England. Who is he, by the way? I don't even know who he is.
I have no idea.
I forget his name, but he's a good GM. I know that.
But he's never in the media. You never talk about him, but he's doing something right.
Right. But that's like what I was saying. You got to have a successful GM and a successful coach and a successful quarterback to sustain things in this league.
Yeah, and the 49ers still got a lot of valuable. Yes, people are beginning not to fill the seats, but they've got a lot of valuable assets that players would still love to go to San Francisco and play. It doesn't sound like much, but I know me, I love to play in a brand new stadium, new practice facilities. Sounds little, but it's not. It's a lot. Guys want to be around things. It's eye candy. Like Deion says, you look good, you play good. You play good, you get paid good. Get paid good, you live good. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's just that, we all know that something's got to be done, whether Baalke stays, Jed's not going anywhere, but there's got to be somebody, one of you said earlier, somebody's got to play the middleman or something. Yeah. And I don't have that answer. I'm not getting paid enough to even give that answer, but there's a lot of still positive things. And again, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I still see good things happening. We're just not good enough, on both sides of the ball, to win these ball games. Defensively, offensively has played well enough to win ball games. Defensively, again, whether it's injuries or whether, it's personnel, we're not getting it done as a total unit, offensive, defensively, and special teams to win these ball games.
Well, Dexter, well, you probably didn't have this problem, but, when you guys were doing, sweep left, sweep right, and, one of the linemen couldn't get to that block, you were like, gosh, darn it. If you would have hit that, I could have had something there.
True.
And I think that's what the 49ers are going through right now. Obviously, Joe Staley, I do think he's starting to slow down, but he's still one of the best tackles in the league. But some of these younger guys, if they're not getting to the point where they need to get to, and some of them are, it just looks bad on tape. And I think, and that's where it comes out to, guys, where we talk on a weekly basis why the 49ers don't have enough players to play with some of the competition with this tough schedule that we played through the whole year. And it's not a cop-out. It's just being realistic here. think about all the close games we had this year. The Cardinals, they're not playing team football this year. Yeah, they had some injuries. Very close game, very competitive. This week, gave all what Miami could take. Very good defensive team. Me and Matt were talking earlier this afternoon. If that's a less of a defense, Kaepernick's probably in the end zone and it's a tie ball game. But sometimes things happen like that where you're just not good enough to win on the field, and it's going to happen. But you have to feel with the struggles, and you have to see who's gonna come and rejoice this. And if I was Jed York, and a lot of people are going to call me out on this, I think the perfect pair, and this was brought to my attention today, would be to let go of Jed York and bring in Mike Shanahan, someone that has been with the organization, knows a lot of people, and hire his son, Kyle Shanahan, to come run this team.
You mean get rid of Chip Kelly?
I like that.
And then bring in maybe a Bill Polian as your middle guy, someone that Jed York's going to respect. In a perfect world, that would be my game plan. And I think the 49er fans will be on board with that because you're bringing back someone that they know. And I tell you what, guys, Kyle Shanahan, that Atlanta offense is a lot better than people thought before the season started. And
Absolutely
don't tell
right.
me, I mean, they got playmakers. Don't get me wrong. But I think they're a lot better because of Kyle Shanahan.
I would be very much in favor of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Shanahan's
just my thought.
He's a good coach. Dexter, you know him. He was your offensive coordinator during the early 90s, and it's a Super Bowl year, and he's done good things. And like you said, Kyle Shanahan, very good offensive mind. I think that would be a very welcome change. I don't know. Like you were talking about Jed York, needing to be around great people. I think that is one of the problems. I don't know that he's wired like that.
No, I don't think he is.
But if they were to make a change at coach, that would be the kind of thing that they would need to do. And like you said, a middleman, like Carmen Policy was with Eddie, because I think a good middleman could stabilize some things within the structure of the front office. And that temperature really needs to come down. They need to plug these leaks, and they need to start making some good decisions.
Yeah. Dexter, what did Carmen, in your eyes, from what you saw, what did he mean to the 49ers?
When you talk about Carmen, I throw John McVay in there too. These guys, had great relationships, and they understood the 49er culture, and they understood, players that come in and fit what the 49ers were all about. And I don't remember very often that they were never on the same page. So it would be remiss of me to try to say how important Carmen was to this team or to this organization over the years. He was Eddie's right-hand man, and he understood the value of John McVay and valued John McVay's opinion on talent. And they never argued about players that they brought in, because whenever they sat to the table and they put these players in front of each other, they all, at the end of the day, was in agreement that this was the right player. Talent-wise, just attitude, fitting the 49ers were the right guys to bring in, and it's not often that they failed at that. And as you talk about, Carmen Policy and the decisions, in the front office that he made, along with these other great people. And then you talk about Shanahan. See, now you see Elway and the decisions that Elway sits and he does with the Broncos. See, when Mike went to Denver, Now, he wasn't only the coach. He constructed that team. And it took people a minute to realize, that, the owner of the Broncos gave him the power, the decision, the personnel, decisions. It took him a minute. But, I think they brought up the Mike Holmgren. But, see, Mike Holmgren, I guarantee Mike Holmgren would come back to football for that 49er job, in my opinion. I know nobody's talked about him, but, that I'm just throwing that out there. But getting back on Mike Shanahan for a minute, to show you that people weren't sure what kind of power Mike Shanahan had, after we won the Super Bowl, now I may have shared this with Matt, but that next year is when he went to the Broncos, and that next year I was a free agent, and I ended up signing with the Jets. But the day before signing with the Jets, I was in Denver, and Mike had just been there maybe a week, and again, nobody knew the power that Mike Shanahan had. And Mike told me, he said, Dex, I want you to come here and I want you to, be our third down guy and return punts and kicks. Okay. And my thought was, well, and I told him, I said, well, Coach, you have Glenn Mirabin, who is a really good player, and he said, well, nobody knows this, but I'm going to trade Glenn, and I want you to be my guy. Well, I left Mike Shanahan's office and went down the hall to, I can't remember who his director of player personnel or president of the team was, but he told me something totally different. He said, hey, you're going to return kicks and Glenn's going to be our third down guy and punt returner. So I was like, okay, all right. So I went downstairs, they showed me the locker room, and I ran into my old South Georgia buddy, Shannon Sharp, and shared him that story I just told you. And he said, hey, Dex, man, once again, it shows he didn't know the power Mike had, and he didn't know Mike at all. He had just met Mike. He said, well, Glenn Mirabin went to Stanford. That's John Elway's boy. Glenn's not going anywhere. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess they know. They've been here. That's Elway's tight end. So that made my mind up, and not trusting the guy that I had worked with, that I knew and I believed in and thought I had trusted him. It's not a trust issue. It was just the fact that, hey, after I gathered all my information, New York Jets, Mike Shanahan did exactly what he told me he was going to do. And he traded Glenn Mirabin and brought Derek Lavelle in from San Francisco. So what I'm saying is Mike understands personnel. Not that Derek Lavelle came in and just blew away the Broncos, but he constructed that team in a way because he knew how to win. That's what I think he would bring in, and along with his son, and bring something fresh and new to the 49ers that I think would be that next level that the 49ers need.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, dream scenario. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But would I love it to happen? Hell yeah, I would love it to happen. There's no doubt about that. And you look at Trent Baalke's record, which has not been very good, to say the least. But at the same time, a lot of people give a lot of credit to Jim Harbaugh for turning this team around. Jim Harbaugh walked into a very, very good team, but a team that was not very coached in the right situation. And I think it's important that we bring someone up that that is very has a lot to do with probably the last 10 years, I would say, and that's Scott McCloughan. He was with the 49ers. He drafted people like Patrick Willis and
right.
A lot of our talent. he was let go due to he had a drinking issue, which is a very, very bad disease. So obviously he gets players that we need and to be very competitive for those years with Jim Harbaugh. After he leaves San Francisco, he goes to Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Goes there for 3 years. Obviously, we know what happens with that, unfortunately. Now he's with the Washington Redskins, which obviously we're having a very good year and it's gone south, but really has turned that franchise around, their mentality, obviously that's someone that, you have to give praise to, because just for the fact that what he's done with these teams, we're talking about, the Patriots and the 49ers of the past. This guy had a lot to do with the last 10 or 15 years of what, to bring back Lisa West and maybe even the Washington Redskins. I don't think he would come back to the 49ers. But that's another guy I want to throw out there that I thought was very intriguing. Now I'd like to kind of switch over to a different segment, and this might take a little time, but I really want to get your take on this, Dexter. And this is something that we brought up last time, and that is concussions. I think over all the ex-49ers I've ever talked to, they all have a little loss of memory. I want to get your take on it. Due to the hitting, the two-a-days, do you think the 49ers, the NFL is going in the right direction to kind of keep concussions down? And then I want to talk about your time as an NFL player. Is there anything that you would like to say to these kids that are coming into their own, into the college ranks, maybe one day be in the professional ranks, about concussions? So I'd like to hear your take on that.
Well, I think all levels of football has come a long ways and have improved the awareness, the different methods of blocking, tackling, playing the game of football. Helmets have improved to try to minimize concussions. The concussion protocols, have improved greatly from, just holding up 3 fingers back in the day. And, heck, if you were within 2 fingers, you're okay. Hey, how many fingers I got up? It's 3, but if you say 5, you're okay. But it's so much better today. So you got to give the NFL some credit. You've got to give the NCAA, some credit from the injury perspective in general. But concussions, they have. But as far as from back prior to me and during my time, you can't go back and I guess retroact and implement what they're doing today back then. It's a serious issue. I know that I had 3 for sure, because when the light gets turned off or you're seeing, 3 or 4 of somebody or something, you know something strange, but it was, hey, shake it off, get back in there. And are those things long-lasting? I definitely believe that they are, because, for me, I was always told never go down or go out of bounds uncontested. I remember my coach, okay, I'm not going to mention his name because I have too much respect for him, but when you're in a game and you're watching film, you see somebody like Tim Brown, Eric Metcalf, who I thought, now looking back, very, very smart, intelligent runners, because and I teach, I coach high school now, and I teach. If you were an offensive player, you're running a route across the middle. Understand the drop of the quarterback, the timing of the route. There's no need to look back at the quarterback too early. You need to be looking at where you're going, and you read either man or zone, which dictates the route that you run. So even if the ball's thrown to you, it's zone coverage and it's tight. You know what? In hindsight, if I had to go back, I would do what I see Tim Brown do, what Eric Metcalf do. They catch the ball, realize that they're already in a crowd, and they're going to get blasted. And what did they do? They got down. But I was always taught, even in college, don't go out of bounds uncontested. Dip that shoulder and rip through them. Cross the middle. You know what? Hey, you just try to get every yard you can. But I remember watching film with the 49ers, and Eric Metcalf did that with the Atlanta Falcons. And the coach called him, look at that punk. Look what he's doing, And I'm thinking, well, if I do that, am I a punk? So I just never did. And believe it or not, that caused some of my fumbles, because, when you try to get every yard you can, you got a guy 250 pounds, I'm 170 pounds, that grabs me. Then another guy 250 comes up, if not bigger. They're not going to go and try to demolish me. They're going to, try to rip the ball out. So, but that first hit was a hit, So, and over all those years, and Matt, you may have heard this too. Over my retirement years, people used to always, how people tell you things to remember. And I never shared this with people because I thought I was the only one. But my kids would always say around people, I don't know why you're telling Daddy that. He's never going to remember. Now, they don't know anything about concussions. All they know is Daddy's recollection on remembering things, and kind of bring it all to, to where we're at today. I've gone through that concussion protocol. And still, it's kind of a little embarrassing or not wanting to share it. But when I went through that, it proved to me that something is desperately wrong, or I'm just dumb. And because a lot of it is puzzles, pictures, words, letters, showing it to you right after they show you 2 or 3 things, or show it to you, then they wait, do something else, then they come back and see how you recall it. And I could not recall very much. Now, you see me, I recall a lot of stuff from my playing days, but when you show me something like right now and then show it back to me, I can't remember it. And I'm not embarrassed like I used to be, because it's something real to it. And I don't mind sharing it because other people, obviously are going through similar things that I did. And I can't recall anything other than playing ball all my years, And yes, I could say I was 150 pounds going into Florida State, 170 pounds playing in the NFL. So maybe that has something to do with it. But then I see too many guys who are 2 times my size or more that's experiencing the same thing. So it had to do something with your brain, and all these hits, going back and forth in this helmet, and and just over time, it having its toll on all of us.
Now, what was kind of scary is we had Jamie Winborn on, I would say about a month ago, and he says sometimes he doesn't remember his kids' names. He'll think for a second, he'll be like, oh my gosh. And then I'll come to him, but...
Yeah. Well, hell, I thought that was just because I had 5 kids. I mean, heck, I call my kid Jalen when I'm really talking to Devin. Then I say Jada, and I'm like, you know who I'm talking to. So I don't know if that has anything to do with concussions. but I
think
could
that's
see
parenting.
Yeah. But I do recall seeing something similar to what he said from Tony Dorsett, and it too often hits home. And once again, we all are very prideful and don't know what to share or how to share it in detail because one, it's embarrassing, and number two, is that just how it's supposed to be? Is that just how it is, or is it football related? So I guess when you hear more people talk about it, you realize, well, maybe it is relevant, as far as this serious issue, where concussions and football is concerned.
Well, here's a story, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And, I did not play college football, but what I can tell you is I'm watching, and, famous Jim Brown comes out there, and he's talking about concussions, and he says, we know what we got into for a career. Those are the opportunities. We knew what, you could break a neck, you could, have concussions. And my whole thing was, no, you really didn't know that back then. You didn't know how severe. I mean,
I totally agree with you, and I respect Jim, but
I do too.
Breaking my neck never crossed my mind. Concussions never did. Never crossed my mind. Now twisted ankles did. Bruises, those kind of things really did. But concussions and the other serious issues, the breaking the neck and all of that, I never, ever, not once crossed my mind throughout my entire career. So maybe that's, idiotic of me. I don't know. I don't have that answer. All I know is I didn't have that. So I just think the only thing I do know for sure is that I'm sure playing football from 8 years old all the way through the NFL, 8 years old to 29, I am sure that there were other times in the prior league that impacted us too. But the NFL is a violent game, and it is much more serious. There's a big jump from college to the NFL. So it doesn't matter if you play from Part 1 or not. When you go from college to the NFL, it's a big deal. That's why you never will ever have the NFL like NBA, where a player used to go straight to the NBA, or now they play 1 year and go to the NFL, NBA. No one can do that in the NFL. It's just too much of a man's game.
That's a good question. How much faster is it from college to pros? I mean, can you kind of can you explain that? Are you like, I mean, is it like, okay, I'm going to be a little kind of stupid here, but I mean, you watch all these movies and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's so much faster. Is it that fast where your eyes are going millions of miles an hour, or is that not realistic? It's just a little bit quicker than what you're expecting.
Well, you know what? I ran a 4.3 at the combine, and and the fastest running back in the draft. So even for me, it was because guys in the NFL, they play smarter. So how can I say it? It's like a DB. It's like Deion Sanders playing a receiver. He learns to mirror the receiver. A lot of it has to do with angles, heel, feet. He reacts quicker than the receiver, and the receiver knows what he's doing. That's the way it is in the NFL. Players are so much older, smarter, bigger, stronger. A year in the NFL makes a big, big difference. So they're moving quicker. Even though I'm faster, they move quicker. Now, I still took some to the house now, but at the end of the day, it's just a bigger, stronger, faster game because those are men out there. And when they hit you, it's something that you got to become accustomed to, no different than high school to college. It is different. That's why it's not very many freshmen that can go straight into college and play like a few can. Or it's not many like a Dak or Elliott that can go to the NFL and play like they play. Now, a lot of it has to do with that mammoth offensive line that Dallas has. But every rookie has a transition. And it's a number of things. It's the book smarts, the learning of the new culture, the terminology of plays, but a lot of it is athletically, the ability that it takes, to play a grown man sport.
Well, let me ask you this, and I think it was J.J. Stokes that said this. He said, as a wide receiver in the NFL, you have three speeds. You have one is your route speed, two is your breakaway speed, and three is, oh crap, I need to get to the end zone. Would that be accurate for a running back too?
Well, you know what? I love the way J.J. Stokes, elaborated on that. Well, this is mine. There's my mama told me there's one speed, run like you're scared. And that's what I did. I ran like I was scared. So now nobody ever saw that in my eyes, and they never saw it, in anything that I ever said. But, and I'm being sarcastic a little bit, but at the end of the day, someone who has breakaway speed, it's like seeing the end zone. Once you get to that second level, those linebackers, you're trying to find creases. And if you've got a top end, then that's when you hit it. So, for one, if you remember Terrell Davis when he was with the Broncos, and Shanahan ran that stretch, a lot of that stretch downhill, run straight, read that tight end, that defensive end, and there's a one cut and go. That worked for guys regardless of what their speed was. But even Terrell Davis, who wasn't that fast, it's very seldom he got caught. Because once you get downhill and as a runner, you see that end zone, you find a way. Jerry Rice wasn't the fastest, but when he saw that end zone, not many people caught him from behind. So in a way, JJ and I are saying the same things, just a little different way.
It's interesting. Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh man, I didn't play, so it's hard for me to speak to that, but I think Dexter really hit it on the head. I've heard guys say the same thing. You play like you're afraid, like you're running scared. You don't show it, but Jerry Rice said I played every game like I was afraid to get cut. If I'm quoting that right.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like that's the kind of mentality you got to have to be successful.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It was an honor to always talk to you guys. And
same here. Thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. And we'll be definitely talking to you guys soon. And definitely go check out the Grueling Truth. You guys have a great night, and now I'm a guarantee a damn win this week. Guarantee. Guarantee.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Hey, appreciate your optimism.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Hey. Well, always enjoy being on your show, my man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys. You take care, okay?
All right.
Take care. Thanks again.